What's up for all fans? Mafia here with you for the last time in 2016. Pharrell, Cover High, and I will all be back on January 2nd. After we ring in the new year, we'll be there for the semifinals of the college playoffs, we'll be there for the finals and the NFL playoffs, and of course we'll be coming back on Black Monday when everybody in the NFL gets fired and tossed out of their jobs because their team didn't perform well enough. Not exactly the night you want to start your year off on, but it'll be fun. We'll talk bad about a lot of people. Anyway, what we're going to talk about right now is Terry Bradshaw and his comments of talking bad about people when he bashed Mike Tomlin today. Now, a lot of people are up in arms about this. I'm, to a lesser degree, upset about it, but I'll tell you, for me, I don't have a problem with necessarily him criticizing the Steelers. I know Steeler fans are going to hate it because you're a former Steeler, once a Steeler, always a Steeler, and now you're criticizing our coach. But to me, this is a lot different than when other guys do it. Like, as a Jet fan, whenever Joe Namath opens his mouth, I cringe because he always has something critical to say about the Jets. He's always bashing them and putting them down. And it's like, why do we need to hear from you? Just because you played for us doesn't mean you need to be the expert on everything Jets, because you're not. It's different with your boy Bradshaw because he's paid as an analyst for the NFL. He, every week on Fox, talks about the NFL. That's what he's paid to do. That's his job, is to talk about the NFL. So granted, this is about his former team, so people are going to make a bigger deal about it, but the guy's paid to say things all the time. That's his job. That's what he does every week of the season. So when he does an interview on Fox Radio and then bashes his former team and their coach, it's not as big a deal to me as it would be if it was someone else. If it was another former player that has nothing to do with the team or has nothing to do with the NFL anymore and just sitting on his butt watching games at home. Bradshaw knows what he's talking about. He's paid to do it. Yes, he's a little more outrageous than a lot, and he's paid to be outrageous. Draws the ratings for Fox. But that being said, he has a lot more credence in his criticism than I think most former players would that aren't involved with the game anymore. Now, I do agree with one of the things he said as far as when you are thinking of best coaches in the NFL, you never really think of Mike Tomlin. But I don't think that's because of Tomlin. I don't think that's because Tomlin's a bad coach. I just think that he unfairly doesn't get a lot of credit for the success of that team. I mean, it seems unfairly that everything the Steelers do, all the credit goes to Big Ben. And I know Big Ben's a great quarterback, and he leads them and does great things for them. And now you get a little bit of lesser credit to Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, all great players. But for them, it all goes through Big Ben in people's eyes. It's all the credit, all the criticism, it's all on him. You don't get that necessarily every other situation. I mean, you get that a lot of situations with a great player and a great coach that, you know, the player gets most of the credit and the coach is just, he's just on the sidelines, he doesn't do anything. But that doesn't happen in New England. Everything that happens with the Patriots, we give Bill Belichick credit for. Sometimes even more credit than Tom Brady, who is one of the best, if not the best quarterback we've ever seen. So while it happens a lot that the player gets the credit and the coach just gets the criticism, it doesn't necessarily happen everywhere in the NFL. And maybe Mike Tomlin needs to get some more of the criticism when they're bad and a lot more of the credit when they're good. So I agree with Bradshaw in that respect that the guy doesn't get all the attention, but I think he should get a little more. So while Bradshaw's right, he's also wrong on that in my opinion. Now as far as the being not a great coach and just really being a great cheerleader, I don't know if I'm going to say the guy's a great coach. He's a very good coach. Maybe on the cusp of being great. I mean, the guy's won a Super Bowl. They've never had a losing season in his 10 years there. They've done a lot of good things. Yes, they've struggled whenever Big Ben's not there, so you would assume that, okay, it's all Big Ben in a lot of people's eyes. But that's not fair. Because, like I said, with the credit being given out, any good coach isn't going to be good if they have a bad quarterback in the NFL. It doesn't matter who you are. You could bring Bill Belichick and give him a bad quarterback. You can give, Chuck Noll, Tom Landry, all these legendary coaches. They wouldn't be good if they had an awful quarterback either. And let's face it, Landry Jones and some of these other garbage backups they've had, they're not going to win no matter who you put in as coach. So I don't think that's fair to put that on Tomlin or to give all the credit to Big Ben just because when he's not there, the team stinks. I think he is a very good coach. I think he has a lot of guts. He's the guy that's always pushing them to go for 2 every time. He doesn't like these extra points, especially now that they moved them back. They're going to play to win. They're going to play hard, and they're going to play their best and play to run the score up. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They're going to keep scoring, and they're going to go for 2 every time to make it harder for you to come back on. Maybe that's a little bit out of necessity because their defense isn't very good, which is a far cry from what the Steelers are known for. But let's face it, their defense has not been good the last couple of years. Their defense has not been what it used to be. This isn't the Steel Curtain. This isn't even the defense that Bill Cowher had. The personnel moves have not worked out on that side of the ball a lot of times. So maybe he's forced to be more ballsy and go for two every time. But either way, he makes those decisions. I like him. I like him as a coach. I think he's tough. I think he's good. And I think he gives Big Ben a lot of freedom. And that's the ironic part. Because as much as Bradshaw is criticizing Mike Tomlin, to me this is the kind of coach that he wish he had. He might not think he's a great coach, but Chuck Noll, who everyone says was a great coach, Bradshaw hated. They were constantly at each other's throats when he played for him. I mean, he played for one of the best. A great coach. Chuck Noll, Hall of Famer. And they were at each throats constantly. They hated each other. They were always bashing each other. Chuck Noll was controlling. Bradshaw didn't want to do what he was told to do and wanted to have some freedom. Didn't. Hated it. He was constantly getting taken out or getting bashed or things like that. They did not see eye to eye pretty much the whole time they were together. And yet a coach who he would have killed to play for in Tomlin, who lets his quarterback run the show, who loves to go and just air the ball out, who loves to go for 2 points, who loves to be behind his guys and rah-rah and cheer them on and back them up no matter what's going on, and take some of the fall when things go bad. To me, that's the kind of coach that I would want, that most guys would want, and that Bradshaw probably would have killed for during his career. So it's amazing to me that he's bashing this guy. This is a great coach. I think you would have loved him if you played for him. So while I don't have a problem with Bradshaw saying some things that he's going to say because he's paid to do it, and while I think Tomlin doesn't necessarily get all the credit he deserves, but doesn't deserve all the credit, I do think it's kind of ironic that Bradshaw is going to trash the kind of coach that he would have killed for in his career. I think you got to give a little more credit to Mike Tomlin than Bradshaw is, but I'm not going to say he's great either. I'm going to say he's very good. He's one of the most consistent coaches in the NFL, and I'd probably say at least top 10 in the NFL right now. But all-time great, we have to wait and see. You're going to need another Super Bowl or two, but still it's funny that Bradshaw bashes a guy who he would have, if he could have crafted a coach to play for, the perfect coach in his mind back in the day, probably would have been a guy like Mike Tomlin. So like I said, that's the end of our videos for the 2016. Let's get to something from home. We hope you have a great holiday season. A Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, a Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate. I hope it was great for you and your family. Have a happy and safe New Year, and we'll see you in 2017 with Pharrell, Carver High, and myself, all in the fold, back again.